Welcome to Live Into Your Best Life, a show where people learn how to go from where they are to where they'd like to be in any area of life. If you're looking for a new job, wanting to improve your relationships, or even reclaim your health, Paulie Skaja will share with you a simple formula that can take you on a journey to begin to live into your best life in all areas of life. Now sit back and begin your journey.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of Live Into Your Best Life. I'm Paulie Skaja, your show's host, and with me today, I'm so excited, Monica Kenton. So Monica has been a friend of mine for over a decade. Can you believe it? It's so fun. And so she gave me a little short. She gave me a bio to read. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to enhance it for her. So Monica is a spiritual and energy guide, shamanic, practitioner, and dream teacher for creative professionals and entrepreneurs. For the past 17 years, Monica has been helping overworked creatives and entrepreneurs who crave more balance, joy, and fulfillment to create their own personalized spiritual roadmap for work and life that results in more freedom and time to do what truly matters. She helps them find time in their busy schedules to listen to their inner guidance, to make better choices, to manifest the life they actually want, and get their creative projects out into the world. And I would like to share that I have worked with Monica several times over a decade that we've known each other. It's been about 13 years. 13, yeah. So that's fun. She knows way too much about me, and I just have to keep her around and keep her close. But Monica is one of those people that I tell people, as a coach, you can only help people as far as you're willing to help yourself or get the help for yourself. And as I've gone through all my coaching training, everything I do, I work on myself first so that I can go through it, so that I can help people continue their growth as well. And it's not often that you find someone in the world that has a similar belief, but Monica, you're one of those people. And so whenever I'm stuck in my life, I know that I can reach out to you and you get me unstuck. Or it happened a couple of weeks ago, I took one of her classes, and every now and then, just side note, she runs these free workshops and they're brilliant. And it's an hour out of your day, take your lunch, join her. My favorite part is the drumming. Because even if I have a bad headache, she does the drumming, my headache goes away, which I think is brilliant. But I know you didn't know that. Oh, yes. And it's like when people say, oh, I meditated and I got these really great visions. Monica's drumming brings all these really great insights forward for me. And there was a day a couple of weeks ago where I got all this information flowing to me as if I was in a deep meditative state. Oh, wait, I was. And I went to the Mall of America, and I was just, all this stuff was rattling around in my brain as I was driving. And then I texted her, and I was looking for an answer, not the answer that I knew to be true, but I was looking for an answer that maybe someone could give me that was different. And nope, she gave me the answer that I knew was true. And so I just listened, and it was really brilliant, because that's one of the things I love about you, Monica, is that you don't sugarcoat things. But you have this loving way of just matter of factly, but here's what it is. And so that's just a really special gift that you bring to the world as well. So welcome.
Welcome. And thank you for that great introduction and telling me things I didn't even know yet. So awesome. That's why I love connecting with you, Paulie. I'm excited to be here.
It's fun. It's fun. So Monica is very gifted in many different areas, and the introduction doesn't do her skill set justice. So we're going to dive into a little bit of the Monica story. Now, I shared with Monica the premise of my show, Live Into Your Best Life. There's a lot of people out there who say, oh, live your best life. But if you can't imagine what that is, how can you know how to find that? How can you know how to see that? How can you know what's missing? But if you start to step by step live into it, then you can start to experiment. And I know that you love to dabble in a variety of things, figure out what works, and then take what works and continue to refine it and set other things aside. So why don't we go back to wherever in your life you'd like to start and just share with us a bit of your journey and where you came from and where you're going.
Okay. Originally, I thought I would start just where I am right now, but just a real quick thing, since I do work with energy and all of that, is that when was it? In 2000, I had a car accident, which propelled me into my own healing. And I didn't have any access to anything around energy work or any of the things that now I specialize in. And I'm sharing that because so often we can have some type of a traumatic thing happen to us. And instead of looking at it as an awakening to a new shift or pivot, we can get stuck in, why did this happen to me? And so being in that space, I explored all of these different things in order to heal myself. And in the process, found the shamanic path, shamanic dreaming, and the stuff that stayed with me in various, I've shifted and changed over the years, but that has been a pivotal thing. So sometimes out of a challenge can come our greatest gift. And so I'm just sharing that piece because it really formed the rest of how I live my life and being more awakened. And so that's one of the things in here is really listening to that intuition. And sometimes when we don't listen to it, or we think we don't have it, oh, well, I didn't have it when I was younger, or I don't remember this when I was younger, then all of a sudden there might be that metaphorical 2x4, the real 2x4, right? For me, it was that car accident because I was reading books all the time about all these things that interested me. And I can still find myself at certain moments reading the books instead of actually getting in and experiencing life. And I think that's one of the huge things with no matter where we're going, our life continues to share with us. And it's about following what feels right at the moment. Some of it might be, hey, I need this to heal. I need this to help me. I need this because my creative self really wants it. Or then it starts to be like, oh, wait a minute, this really feels good in my body. And I think that's where I've started to really land over these last years, is also what feels really good in my body. And there's no coincidence that any of the times when I've had wake up calls, it's been around my body, right? Car accident, hair falling out, stress, those types of things. And so being really conscious, what does my body want to do as well as me? Because my body is going to go along with me. So I need to be conscious of that. So
very cool. One of the things that I share with people is follow the breadcrumbs. And your body is giving you signs or breadcrumbs that lead you to the next thing. Yeah.
Yeah, very totally. And sometimes the breadcrumbs is showing us something of what I don't want versus something that, oh, this is really good for me. And so realizing also not to judge the breadcrumbs, because I think we get judgy about certain things. I know I have for judgment of myself. Why did I go down this path? Sometimes if we don't explore it, we don't know. And then it's faster to get to those other places. And then, following the joyful breadcrumbs, I think is a really good way to put it. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so then talk about that for a second. Because one of the last show that I did, I talked about Shuhari, and I talk about how that's the mastery path, right? So you start out as an apprentice and you start trying things and you consistently are doing something. But just because you're doing it doesn't mean you have to continue doing it. And so talk a little bit about how you've maybe followed a breadcrumb and then discovered maybe it wasn't the right. How did you know it wasn't right? And then how did you find the courage to backpedal instead of just keep going? Because sometimes not only do we judge ourselves, oh, I am changing paths again, whatever, but also other people judge us. Other people are like, oh, you're changing jobs again? Like I used to have that, so I became a consultant. Then it was expected. So talk a little about that, please.
Okay, the breadcrumbs piece. So let me see. I'm going through a phase right now where I'm making some more pivots and shifts. And a lot of times when we're talking about shifts, we're talking about, it could be a 10-degree pivot, right? Or a 15-degree pivot. We're not, so often we think, oh, I have to completely change something. And sometimes we do, but there's that being able to have those slight pivots. So for a long time, I've really wanted to delve more into working with people, help finish their creative projects. And that's where I'm really making that shift with the work that I do. It's not that much of a big shift because I used to do it as people's lives as creative projects, because I believe everything's a creative project. Okay. However, with this, I saw some visions for myself, and I saw a future self vision. And so seeing myself working with directors and producers and things like that. And now I can take those visions. It can be a metaphor, right? Or it could also be in ordinary reality. I'm not calling it in real life because I believe that all of it is real life, our inner world as well as our outer world. So with that, I got into this thing where it's like, oh, okay, I really enjoyed acting. I've been getting into acting. I found that fun. So I started doing that. And, oh, okay, well, I'm going to work with actors. And then that will bring me to this. I'm sharing this because that wasn't a breadcrumb per se. That was me figuring out the how to get to that space. And so there's a subtlety with certain things, right? There were the breadcrumbs of, oh, I like acting. I found this acting thing. That's really fun for me. And then all of a sudden I imposed my mind. So I'm sharing that because sometimes our breadcrumbs are, Mike Dooley talks about the cursed hows and how we're always trying to find that. And so with that, I went down that space, and then I got more breadcrumbs because that's where my focus is now, where it's just, okay, how am I going to fit this in? And so I did some really cool things and got some really great results with people in the acting field and things like that. And at the same time, there was something that wasn't right. My body was exhausted, not because of the people, not because of anything like that, but there was just something that was going on. I had this exhaustion, and I knew that I was out of alignment. And so at that moment, I got the opportunity to say, oh, this isn't going to serve me in the long run. And it's not going to serve the people in the long run, because there's some other destiny for me and there's some other destiny for them of whoever they want to work with. And so with that, as soon as I was able to let that go, and the piece about letting go, there's the braveness of it, but there also is about being able to let go of the ego and let go of it being a failure. And I tended to always I failed because I didn't, whatever, instead of saying, wow, I got that information within 3 months' time. And in that process, I also learned a lot about what makes people tick. So part of this braveness is really just being able to say, hey, wow, wasn't that a really cool experiment? Wasn't that great? I learned a lot. I had a great time. I know that isn't working. And be able to trust in whatever our connection is, spirit, God, universe, whatever that is, that there is something greater out there for us than we could ever imagine. And so as soon as I was able to do that, then I needed to take some practical actions, because breadcrumbs, with breadcrumbs, you have to pick them up and then you have to take actions. So often people are like, I'm going to follow the breadcrumbs and get to the end. No, each breadcrumb, you have to pick up, you have to take an action and do another breadcrumb. That's right. So as soon as I did that, first of all, my body felt calmer. I started getting more of the support that I needed for the exhaustion and those other things for myself. And all of a sudden, new ideas are coming in and more calm. And with that is the ability to surrender to not knowing. And that is also the piece about being able to find the breadcrumbs, is not figuring out, oh, I'm going to plant that breadcrumb, because I think we do that. So that's what I would want to share, all of that kind of stuff.
Nice. And I think sometimes people create this, oh, I have to be there by a certain age because someone said that, or because that's what you decided when you were 13 years old or 10 or whatever. And you can change your mind, but that hasn't been the norm. And it's becoming more normal. And so I think that it's brilliant that you've embraced this. There's something that you said about alignment, and you noticed that you were out of alignment and that you were feeling tired and things weren't right. I want to tease that apart a little bit. What does alignment mean to you? How do you know when you're in alignment? and when you're out of alignment, and how might other people be able to figure it out for themselves? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. First of all, a lot of it is, yes, we're following breadcrumbs, but we can also follow the breadcrumbs back and finding those moments. Where did we feel out of sync, out of alignment? And alignment is just more of feeling in the flow with life, that there's that feel of mind, body, spirit, that things are just in flow and situations are happening, support is showing up, ideas are flowing. That's
synchronicity, right? That synchronicity, that you're in the zone. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the zone and being able to be in that flow, like I was saying. And then with that, man, all of a sudden I just forgot your question.
Alignment.
Yeah, so the alignment piece, when we're in that alignment, and so going back with the breadcrumbs in the past, for me, I've seen that when I've gotten out of alignment, there's been something physical that's happened for me. For some people, some of my clients, it's a financial thing. For some people, it is a relationship thing. For some people, there's a lot of a combination of those things. So when certain things happen over and over, I start to see that pattern. And so that's how I can tell when I'm out of alignment. And for me, it's when I'm not fully connected in with my body and just feeling off. But like I said, for some people, it can be finances. Some people, it can be relationships. And so part of it is also just slowing down and giving space to meditate or to journey or to journal or to connect with either a coach, a mentor, somebody like that, or a friend a friend who is willing to talk truth, to be able to say, where are things out of alignment, or where are things that don't seem to be working. And so that's what I would recommend to people. But it is that slowing down. And I always say it's slowing down to speed up, because so often when we're out of alignment, it's I've got to get this taken care of. And immediately it's just, okay, let's go. We've already passed the ramps we're supposed to get off on. So let's just keep on gunning it. And then we have to go back and actually stopping and pausing and saying, okay, where did I fall off on this? And knowing and trusting that we will be supported in that pause, I think is a huge piece that in the Western world we don't do. We just figure we can muster through it, push through it, and go even faster. And that is just not in alignment, because we're going down a path that doesn't serve us at this time in our life, at this stage in our life. And each stage is going to be different. Each decade is going to be different.
So let's talk a little about that. How do you find the courage? Because like you just said, every decade is going to be different. I don't know. I think every couple of years in my world is different.
That's true. That's true too.
Because I've paused, and just in the time I've known you, I've lived a lot of life.
Yeah.
And I'm middle-aged, right? So I think I've just put a lot of adventure into those short decades. And so everybody lives life at a different pace. But I know that you've helped me slow down so that I can pay attention. And when I pay attention and when I connect, things flow even more smoothly. When I don't, I tend to get sick. So acknowledging everything you just said, how do you find the courage to pivot? So like we were talking about, when you're going down a path, because when I first met you and you were on doing a lot with the shamanic, you've done a lot with the dream world, and your numerology, and you have so many, your Mary Poppins bag is full, just like mine. We've got, that's the analogy. People
love that visual.
I know, right? I got to say hi to her last weekend, so yay! But that's the analogy people have been using for me lately, is that I have a Mary Poppins bag full of tricks, and you as well. And so you bring these together and you create these new programs, these new offerings, these new services, ways you help people in the world. And how do you find the courage to say, that's not where I'm at anymore. So it served me well then. Thank you. Closing that door, opening a new door, and going down another adventure path. How do you find the courage to do that and the energy to keep moving forward in a new way?
So there are a couple things. I'll tell a story from high school, but the first thing is courage is the word courage comes from the etymology, or the root word of courage is cur, or however you say it in Latin, French, is heart. And so when we're following our heart, and sometimes it can be so much, when I'm following my heart, I'll start crying, I'm not going down my right path. And so I'll find my courage through my tears. Or I'll find my courage where it's just, there's so much more of my life to live. And when I wait, it's just postponing it for myself as well as anybody who I'm here to help. Mm-hmm. And so I go back to a moment back in high school and this is so relatable. I had a crush on this guy, and I just had a crush on him for so many years. He was so cool, and he's funny and humorous, just studious, all these things that I really admired. And I never said to him, or never said anything about that I liked him, right? Because back then it was more girls waited or this kind of thing. And I found out later, years later, that he had a crush on me at the same time. So from that moment, I realized that if we don't take action and actually say what we want, or tell other people what we're wanting, or making those shifts and changes and risking that vulnerability, we might just miss out on certain things. And so that's when, back then, I was just like, okay, if I'm curious about this guy, I'm going to ask him out. And that wasn't really popular back then, but there was just something from that back then. And it still holds true today, that if we're waiting for confirmation from the other person, or confirmation from our other path, we might not get it, and we might miss an opportunity. Mm-hmm. Now, are there always going to be other opportunities? Yes. And I do believe that there's a way of the divine shifting, but I also do believe that we get these moments in time, and especially as we grow older into midlife, which is really the wisdom years. There's so many books, there's so many talking about now. Like I heard something the other day saying 50 is the new 30. I'm like, I like that, since I'm in the 50s, right? Knowing that with the wisdom now, we can make those shifts and changes with more ease. But part of it is just being able to say, am I ready to step into my most glorious life? And that's what you're all about, Paulie. And it's what I'm about too. When we step into our glorious life, we have to have courage. We get to muster it up, because without that, we can just still stand there waiting. And it's about speaking our voice, and speaking our voice into what we really want. And even if we don't totally know what we want, there's a part of us that really does. And that's about taking our power back too.
Indeed. That bit you talked about in regards to knowing your path and knowing where you're going. And I think it's a little different in this day and age than it was when we were kids, right? Where people are, seriously, when I started doing energy work, about the time you did, actually. And there was not a lot of openness. It was a very interesting, very different world compared to now. When you say you're a Reiki master teacher or something, people are like, oh, and it's even in the hospitals now and mm-hmm. things like that, which is really cool. Yet I still find people lacking the courage to leave that job because of the golden handcuffs, or mm-hmm. taking that leap of faith. How have you found that ability to just take that leap of faith? I love your story around how you found the home you have. And I know as an entrepreneur, you and your husband, it's you have to have this. And if you don't have this, you're not going to get that. And I love how you said, I don't care what the system says. I know this is where we're supposed to go. This is part of our destiny. And I know in my being, and you manifested, you made things happen and you put the pieces together. And how do you take that leap of faith and trust what's inside you, even though all the indicators are telling you're crazy?
Yeah. Okay. So a couple good examples is, first of all, knowing that we're all really different, and some people have a need for security more than other people. I do desire security and safety, but I also have a lot of change energy within me. So it's easier for me to change in certain ways, right? However, I still need that security. But when people are making that leap of faith, I really encourage them to look at it as more of just another step that they're taking towards their path, but also being able to say, hey, one person, you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, meaning that, okay, I don't feel good in this job. I want to move into another type of job or another type of thing. What are the things that a person can work on themselves personally to become that other version of themselves? What are some of the things that maybe they need to get in place right away? It's okay, save up some money, maybe take on an extra job to get some more money, get the skills that are needed for this new shift so that it isn't so jarring to the system. There's that path. And some people, because they want more of that security or they feel that need, and they'll have known that through their lives. That's how they've always done it. Then to say, okay, by this date. And I think that's a huge piece, because so often people say, I really want to do this. And then 10 years later, I really want to do this. And when we give it a date, we give it more juice. The universe responds. Also, we respond. That's how I got the house, right? It was, I said by June 4th, we're going to be moved in. This was in December. And I thought, I'm going to get it. And then right away, I was turned down by loan officers, all of this kind of stuff, because my husband and I were entrepreneurs. And it was 2020, just going into 2021. Oh, it's a crazy market. Oh, it's a this. Oh, it's a that. And so part of it is just what's going to show up for us when we're ready to make that leap is all of the limiting beliefs that we have, other people are going to say to us through those words. You don't have the money. Oh, that's my limiting belief. They would say, you need to wait. That was my limiting belief. You can't find this. So all of those things I got to weed out within myself as well. And so anybody taking that leap of faith, knowing, okay, what are those things that I get to let go of as well in order to go forward, and constantly taking action, even despite that, and saying, you know what, the positive action is going to outweigh the thinking. And then that's when providence comes in, where people just started showing up. But it also is a lot of action. And so that sometimes it will be that leap. Sometimes that leap is, instead of having somebody all of a sudden cut your job, and then it's just, oh, wow, I wish I would have done something sooner.
Now
it's
I have to.
also to be proactive.
Yeah.
And that's listening deep within, and also trusting and taking action as well. So I think that's what I would really say. And then also knowing that sometimes it's that first scary action, that first scary step, and you'll find yourself supported, and then the next step and the next step. And sooner than later, you'll notice that all of a sudden you're there. And it was like, wait a minute, that wasn't so hard.
I think we make up these monsters in our minds, and it's figuring out what's real versus what's that monster, and then being able to go from there to figure that out. You made a comment about, forgot it. So I'm just going to go on this and it'll come back to me. But the key word you just said in the last 3 minutes is action. And I think that taking action is actually difficult for a lot of people. They can know what they want or think they know what they want. I take action. I just do, right? I am
I think
constantly.
you're the queen of taking action, actually, Paulie. I've always told you that.
And I make things happen, and it's how I was raised, and I never questioned that it's just how people work, right? That's how I've always worked. So as I've discovered that's not normal, it's been like, really? So if someone is really craving this thing out here, and like you said, 10 years later, they're still really, they don't really. It's they have a desire, but it's not a burning passion desire to make it happen. It's not that I can see myself doing it. I can be there and know I can do it. So how do you just continue to take action?
So part of it is that I don't want to let my excuses define me. And so I do believe that people have this burning desire to change or to make this shift, but they're more attached to their stories and their why can't they than anything else, because there's a fear. So I just deal with more of what is that fear and realizing that that is really an illusion. The other thing that I do is I go back and I look at when did I accomplish something that seemed impossible? And so for me, the house, like you mentioned, or just various other things that have happened in my life, what was different? Why did it work? And then I deconstruct it that way. And so being able to take action by saying, oh yeah, I just constantly took action because I wanted it. And I was also willing to know that it's an experiment. And sometimes that's what it is. And I mentioned before, letting go of the ego, having that conversation that it's just like, who am I? Or there might be self-worth issues coming up or all of those kinds of things. Yeah. But one person had once said, a coach had said to me, sometimes getting to that other side is just one sweaty 5-minute conversation where we're obviously the ones sweating, right? Yeah. Oh my God, who am I talking to? Da, 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 da. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, that went all right. And most often they do go all right. Or if they don't, it's about saying, oh, okay, where's that next opportunity? And for me, the reason I continue to take action is just from the statistics of it, is that when I don't, things don't happen.
That's right.
I want to go to that space. I want that house. I want that thing. And those are tangible things like the house and stuff. But when we're talking about career or purpose or anything like that, it is the same thing as a house. It's the same thing as when I'm building back my body. It's not, I would love to say, boom, I can get that done in a week. But my body is saying, no, this is going to take a couple years. And so it's a constant action and just also holding that vision. And so I think that's a piece as well, holding the vision of what I have now and then being able to tweak it later. We've talked about that, tweak or pivot, and all of a sudden say, wow, I thought I wanted that, but I realize now that actually hanging out with my friends is more important, or beautifying my house is more important. And so I'm going to add that to my vision and then continue going forward and realizing it's a constant process. But without action, you just, yeah, I'm big into action. You know that.
Indeed. And what you just said popped into my mind. I always, when my kids would be like, I want blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's good to want. Now what are you going to do?
Yeah, totally.
And if you want it bad enough, you'll find a way to make it happen. Mm-hmm. I remember what I forgot. When you were talking about the limiting beliefs, so the house, and you were identifying that people were mirroring back to you your limiting beliefs. How do you know that they're your limiting beliefs? Like, what's the indicator for you that makes you know, oh, that's for me? Because a lot of people don't want to see it, don't want to hear it. Even though you could, how can you not see that? Mm-hmm. They're resistant. How do you become open to the information being given to you so that you can see it, that it will help you?
So some of it was that I was able to see it, right? But I would say about 80% of it was I had support. Because I think that we're so close to what's happening with ourselves that it's really hard to see those things. Like, yes, I could connect in with my intuition and connect in intuitively with certain things, but with certain limited beliefs, it was even blocking how I connected with my intuition. And that's when I needed the support of, I had some coaches that were helping me at the time in various different forms, giving me different perspectives, as well as people who I trusted, and not necessarily friends and family, because they want to keep me in that safe bubble so that they can keep me safe.
Crabs in a bucket.
Yeah, exactly. But people who are willing to say to me, hey, that thinking that you have right now, you could look at it this way or that way. And so being able to ask for support, no matter where you are in your journey, and not using money as an excuse, like I don't have the money to get support, or because when we ask for support, we'll always get it and however we need it. So that's one as far as the limiting beliefs. And the other piece is, as I have gone through so much personal development, I am much more aware of my trigger limiting beliefs, where all of a sudden I'm just like, oh yeah, this is when that person says this, then that triggers this in me, which means that I act this way. And that is through years of personal development, why I think personal development is so important.
It's your personal reflection time, right? You're reflecting, inspecting, adapting, and figuring out, okay, so if I don't want to be that way, how would I rather be?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. All right. So those are my last questions. Now I'd like to, are you willing to reveal what your next adventure is? What you're working on?
Sure.
Tell us.
So my next adventure is it's actually a program that I'm doing. So it's called The Finish Line. Get your project done in less time with more ease and more personal mojo than you've ever had before. And part of it is because I'm in the process of doing some of my own creative projects as well, because I believe that we're always teaching what we're learning. And so there's that part that I get to then continue to work on my creative projects as well. However, this is really what I'm focusing on, because I found over and over with people in the creative professions or people who have some creative endeavor that they want to get through. It's okay, I want to work on this creative project. And they treat it as just a project instead of a live entity, a live energy. And once you treat it as a live energy, first of all, the project just expands and it's really cool. And I love, and it just jazzes me to help people expand that. But also that creative entity is also asking us to live our best life. And so with that, being able to help people get it out into the world by being able to speak it out into the world, to bring it forward, all of that. So it's combining a lot of everything I've done, but it's adding more of that creative piece to it, because I feel that right now in the world, with everything's going on and budget cuts, at least even in the US, right? That's where I know it's okay. We're cutting the music programs. We're cutting the creative programs. So it's about being able to say to people, hey, the creativity is actually that part of soul. And how can we really tap into that? So that's what I'm really excited about. That's that program. And then in the process, there's a project that I want to get out into the world. We'll see how that shows up. I'm not attaching so much energy in the sense that it will change my life. I do believe it will. I believe all our creative projects do. Yeah. So we'll see wherever that goes, but that's where I'm headed. That just feels really juicy right now and feels really, it lights me up. And so that's where I'm focusing.
Awesome. Awesome. And I love how, so we started with you talking about the actors and things like that. And I love how it's the spotlight and the star and you have such creative ideas on each of your programs and they just resonate and you attract such fantastic, wonderful people. So I'm so excited to follow the journey and see how things go. Thank you so much, Monica, for talking with me today.
Thank you. It's lovely as always to be with you. And I love what you're doing. So thanks for having me.
Indeed. And listeners, I'm hoping that you took many nuggets because Monica gave you a lot of really juicy tidbits that you can take action on. So go back and re-listen to this now that you've heard it all, re-listen to this module or episode because you'll be able to pick out action items that relate to where you are today. And I'm just going to say in 2 or 3 weeks, re-listen to it again because new nuggets are going to present themselves because we're constantly changing. And because we're constantly changing, what we heard once, we may not need in the moment. But as we transform and start to move towards where we'd like to be, new things are going to help us get where we want to be. So very cool. Thank you so much. All right. So that's it for today's episode. I'm Paulie Skaja with Live Into Your Best Life. If you didn't have enjoyed your time with Monica and myself, please and share this episode and leave a comment. Let me know what you'd like to hear next and why you really enjoyed this episode. Until next time, take care and enjoy the adventure.
Thank you for listening to Paulie Skaja, your show host for Live Into Your Best Life. Check out the show notes and visit her at paulieskaya.com to learn more and continue your journey. Until next week, enjoy the adventure.